Thank you. Thank you. My guest tonight is John Cleese, or Cleese, or Cheese. And perhaps he will explain that or leave it at that, but I'm serious. Who is as intelligent and presentable and charming a madman, as they say in England, as you'd ever want to meet. Mr. Cleese, or Cleese, comes by his madness professionally, you could say, because he is one of a group of 6 English writers, artists, performers who call themselves Monty Python's Flying Circus. I hope they aren't unheard of to you. Don't ask me why they are called that. The chances are that you have seen the Monty Pythons either on their TV show, you may be addicted to it. It's now running on more than 100 PBS stations, or you've seen them in their films, or live appearances, or books, or whatever. Even so, you may not be absolutely sure what it is you have seen when you have seen them. So, there's a little test for you. You might try to complete the following sentence. The Monty Pythons are A, brilliantly funny, B, tasteless and funny, C, deeply satirical, D, sophomoric and inane, or E, the perfect answer to the complaint that we import too much British culture. Now, have you all finished your exams? The trouble is that I guess all those answers could be considered correct depending on who or whom you ask. The group's latest venture is a movie called The Life of Brian. You may have seen, know about it. It's a religious travesty, which is an enormous success, I expect, from the Pythons' point of view, since it seems to have offended everybody. Here is an item called the Monty Python Scrapbook. The names all run together, and there's only one S. You can make what you want of that. And it's their public version, really, or half of it is, of the script of the Monty Python. It's a published version of the script, of the movie, yeah. And then, when you get to the end of that, everything is upside down, and you have to flip the book over and start from the other end. The book contains, however, a letter from Queen Elizabeth, the Buckingham Palace stationery, and it begins... Hello, many people feel that in this day and age thinking you are a queen is somehow a dangerously lunatic idea. I'll skip some, but she said, Her Majesty then goes on to say, but not the Monty Python boys, and that is why I've always still steered well clear of giving them silly awards and gongs and meaningless initials after their names, which we throw around to the idiots in the civil service for subverting any social changes that might occasionally occur to the tired minds of the witless cretins who have run this country since the war. Now, people have even suggested that Queen Elizabeth did not actually write that letter, but everything the Pythons do gets criticized, so I'm sure they're braced for that. Anyway, perhaps Mr. Cleese can clear that up for us. It's a bit of a muddle. Will you welcome, please, John Cleese? Old time. Have a seat there. Oh. Was that all right? John is either now going to be wildly funny or occasionally funny, depending on how either of us feels. That has to be a problem for anybody in the life of or the world of wild comedy.
Oh, I find it a terrible problem. In fact, if you really want to know, this is the second chat show I've done in my life. Well, I did one in 1967. Yeah. And as a result of it, I thought I'd leave it a little, you know.
Give it a rest.
Give it a rest, so no.
Well, yes, I was told that you were impossible to get, that we would be more likely to get Greta Garbo on the show. And as luck would have it, she wanted to be on today. And, but sorry. It was so hard to get you. Are you a reluctant traveler as well? Is that part of it, that you don't like to wing over to...
I don't like rushing about. You know, you come to New York for 2 weeks and you think this is lovely, because I actually lived in New York for 18 months.
Right.
Got a lot of friends, yeah. I don't know, the audience might be interested to know that I did 6 months on Broadway and half a sixpence playing opposite your wife, who's playing my sister.
That's right.
That's right.
Yes. And by the time I saw the show, you were not in it, you tell me?
Well...
And yet I clearly remember you in it.
Maybe you didn't look very hard. You know, I only had a few lines, and the lovely thing about it is that I'm the worst singer in the world, well, certainly Europe. And I was kicked out of singing classes when I was about 10, and I had to go and do extra Greek.
Yes.
And I was here in New York, and somebody said, come and audition for a Broadway musical. And I thought, this is the funniest thing ever. I thought, this is wonderful. So I went along, and they asked me to sing something, and I said, I really cannot, what's the word, handle a tune, carry a tune?
Handle or carry a tune.
Yeah. And they said, can you sing your national anthem? And I tried, and I got it wrong.
Puts you in good company.
And a week later, they rang me up and said, will you do the part anyway? And I said, what do I do about the singing? And they said, well, it's only chorus stuff. So until you get the tune, first couple of months, just mime. And that's what I did. I stood at the back of the chorus, and everybody sang. I knew the words, and I just did that quiet. And then, after we'd been going about 3 months, I started joining in very quietly.
You let a little voice sneak into it?
Just a little, well, on the notes that I was sure of.
Yeah. Well, I clearly remember you in the show. And,
you're alive.
And even though you had left it by the time I saw it, that's how indelible an impression you make as a performer. My wife said you kept her sane and several other people out of town. Being out of town with a musical is not the best thing for one's mental equilibrium.
Oh, it was terrible. We lost the director after 3 weeks. You know, all these terrible horror stories that we hear in England, you know, about how tough it is in America. Yeah. There was a very nice director I was very fond of, and I walked in for rehearsal the 3rd week, and he was gone.
He just had it.
Never saw him again.
Now, was that ever explained to you? Was it just an unperson at that point?
But a terrific guy took over. I don't think he liked me much, and I don't think he thought I was any good, but he had real guts. And he came in, and he brought the thing together, and he got it right by the time we got to Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Gene Sachs.
Oh, Gene Sachs, yeah, that's right. By the way, getting into the movie The Life of Brian, by the way, does any of you admit to naming the group Monty Python's Flying Circus? Is there a controversy about who?
Well, yes, the problem we had of finding a good title for it was almost the worst problem we had with the whole show. You know, we had the show written on the first one, and we didn't know what to call it. And we had a whole lot of fanciful titles, like we wanted to call it a horse, a spoon, and a basin. And a basin, which I really liked. And somebody else wanted to call it Bunwacket, Buzzard, Stubble, and Boot. Owl Stretching Time. The Toad Elevating Moment. There were all these suggestions. And one day we sat around and got very drunk, and we had to come up with a title. And somebody had already started to call it The Flying Circus. In fact, the BBC had started to call it that, and they'd started writing it in their schedules in ink, you know. So they said, well, could you call it The Flying Circus, because otherwise we have to write out new schedules. So we said, it's a nice title. And then we couldn't decide who. We thought it might be Gwen Dibley's Flying Circus, because she'd been Michael Palin's music teacher when he was 11. And then somehow we went off Gwen Dibley. I don't know why. She could be famous, you know.
Had someone else used her name, perhaps?
No, nobody got her first.
Gwen Dibley.
And somebody came out with Monty Python, and we all fell about. And I mean, I can't explain why. We just thought it was funny that night.
Presumably you haven't been sued by anyone named that. It sometimes happens when you're...
Groucho Marx had that, didn't he? He had a character called Phineas X Flitterwaggle.
One of the most preposterous names.
That's right.
And one showed up in Corning, Iowa or somewhere and sued him.
Sued him. Second night, yeah.
Thaddeus T. Flywheel? No,
something like that, yeah.
One of them. By the way, I have read The Life of Brian's script. I don't know whether this is the shooting script or is it ex post facto or after the fact put...
It's the shooting script with a few things still left in that we actually edited by the time the movie got on the screen.
Oh, so there's a few things in here that aren't in the film?
Yes, one or two of the offensive things which we took out.